Philippians chapter 4, verse 11 is what I want. I don't know if you want this. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. That sounds pretty nice. Like I know what it is to just feel good. No matter what's happening around me, no matter what situation's unfolding, no matter what's being done to me, no matter what notifications are gonna pop up on my phone in the next 24 hours, I know what it is to be content in that situation. No matter what my financial status is, no matter what my relationships might look like, I know what it is to be content, whatever the circumstances. So Paul's gonna challenge us to be content, and yet here's what I want you to see. I'm gonna kind of give us the way from the beginning. Contentment comes through commitment. We tend to look at these two words and they seem similar. Spelled similar amount of syllables, same amount of syllables, commitment, contentment. If I say it fast enough, you don't even know which one. Commitment, contentment, contentment, commitment. Like, I'll probably confuse them in the next few minutes, even while I teach through this. And yet we see these things as opposite. Like, commitment takes something from me. Commitment makes me a little bit uncomfortable because of what it might require of me. But contentment, that's what we want. That's what we're chasing after. But here's the catch, is that contentment comes through commitment. If you want to be content, you got to commit. Commitment leads to contentment. Let me give you an example of how this plays out. Let's say that you're in a dating relationship. You're pretty serious about this person, but there's part of you that says, I don't know. I don't want to lock this down because what if there's somebody else that comes along? What if someone else would make me happier? I don't want to commit myself because my commitment might lead to discontentment. I'll get married to this person and then somebody else comes along and I wish I wouldn't have committed. But you ask any couple who's been happily married for any time at all, and they would tell you that contentment comes not by keeping your options open, but by closing them. As long as you have all these options open, you're never going to be very content. But when you make a commitment, then contentment comes. And it's your lack of commitment that's leading to discontentment. Doesn't mean that you should marry whoever you're dating right now. It just means that you recognize that commitment is ultimately the pathway to contentment. That's true in your career. Like you think, well, maybe if I just find a better job, I'll be happy. But some of you have been job hopping for decades. And if you would commit yourself to the work that you're at, you might find contentment is more likely through commitment. And I've been in ministry for a number of decades, and I'll just tell you, the most content people I know are the most committed people I know, and the most restless, anxious, kind of never have enough people are the people who resist commitment. And so this weekend is commitment weekend. It's a midpoint commitment weekend in our move journey, and what I want you to capture is that it is your commitments that lead you to contentment. With that in mind, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to answer this honestly, meaning I want you to have a real answer that comes to your head, okay? How much money would you have to make in order to feel content? Like if we just talk about contentment in financial terms, what's the figure? Don't say it out loud. But what is the amount? Like go ahead and put it in your head. Lots of research has been done on this. Like thousands of people have been asked, hey, what would it take for you to feel content? Financial, not wealthy, that's not the question, just content. And what they found was, didn't really matter how much you were making, it was always like 15 to 20% more than that number. So if you're making 50 grand a year, that number's around 60 grand. You're like, if I had 60 grand a year, I would be content with that. But if you're making like 100 grand a year, that number is like 120 grand. That would make me content. If you're making $500,000 a year, you'd think, well, surely that would make you content. Nope, it's about 600 grand a year for those people. $1 million a year, who would need more than that to be content? Well, people who make $1 million a year, they need about 1.2 million. So here's the point. It's a moving target. Like enough is almost always like 15 to 20% away from wherever you are right now. And you get to that amount and it increases another 15 to 20%. In psychology, this is called the arrival fallacy. And it's this false belief that if you just reach a certain level of compensation or accumulation, you'll be content. but you're always waiting to arrive. The arrival fallacy. A psychologist named Tim Kasser spent over a decade studying materialism and what happens to people who organize their lives around the accumulation of wealth and possessions. Again, researched thousands of people across different ages and incomes and cultures. And here's what he found. People whose values center around the accumulation of wealth and possessions face significantly higher risk of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and problems with intimacy, meaning that they end up feeling more and more isolated. Now you hear about that and you're like, tell me about it. It's those rich people, right? Am I right? No, that's not it. It was not about how much they had. It was regardless of how much money they actually had. It wasn't about being rich or poor. It was about orientation. That rich or poor, if your life is oriented around the accumulation of things, money and possessions, if that's what you're living for, this is how you're gonna end up. And so with that in mind, let me read Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 through 13. Paul says, I'm not saying this because I'm in need. I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. And I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can, he says, do all things through him who gives me strength. So did you catch what Paul says here? He refers to contentment as a secret. Secret. He speaks of contentment like it's insider information, like it's something that most people never figure out, like it's a code that you're gonna have to crack. And that feels right to me. Because in a world where we all wanna be content, it just seems that very few of us have discovered that. And the irony, of course, is that we live in one of the most affluent culture in the history of humanity, and we're some of the most discontent people who have ever lived. And so what's the secret to being content? We think if I just had more of whatever it is I want, I'd be content with that, but it just never seems to work out that way. Now, he says that he's learned the secret. He's learned it. He uses that word twice. It's something he had to be taught. It's not something he understood innately. Like he didn't find that he was just born knowing the secret of contentment. It's something that he had to discover. And if you're a parent of a young child, you know that to teach a child contentment, you don't do that by giving them what they want. Like if a child is at a grocery store and they're throwing a fit because they want whatever's right there at the cashier eye level, you know the way to make them content is not by saying, oh, yeah, okay, go for it, help yourself, whatever you want there, because that's gonna make you happy. Like you understand that how to make a child content is not giving them what they want. That's how you end up with a discontent child. And yet as adults, we tend to forget this. So last year, I took my oldest grandson, McKay, to breakfast and then to pick out a toy at Goodwill. He was 2 at the time, and this is kind of a thing we do. Pancakes and then Goodwill, pick out whatever toy you want on the toy aisle. And listen, this is our thing. I don't want the rest of you doing this. If you're gonna drive up Goodwill prices, it'll ruin everything. So it's what we do. And so we go for pancakes and we go to Goodwill. You can pick out one toy, buddy. Again, he's 2. He gets his little shopping cart. He picks out a stuffed monkey, calls it George after his books. I took a picture of it. That's my grandson a year ago, picked out his one toy. Seems adorable. Then, in order to go to the checkout line, we have to walk past the bikes, and there, sitting amongst the bikes, is this little red scooter car. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a toddler crawls inside of it, sits down, and they can scoot their feet and make the little car go. It's got a horn, a steering wheel, the whole thing. And he climbs inside of this thing, starts wheeling around like, no, buddy, we already picked out our toy. Do you remember? No, he did not remember. Didn't remember at all. I tried to lift him out of the car, and I'm pulling on him. And this is where I discover that my 2-year-old grandson has the grip strength of a baby gorilla. I'm pulling on him, and finally I get to where his feet, I'm holding his feet, and he's holding onto that steering wheel, and he's He is not letting go. He starts screaming. We're drawing attention to ourselves. There's a woman in the kitchenware aisle who acts like she's looking at a blender, but is clearly judging me. And I'm like, he's not my son. I'm like, oh, never mind. That's not what I mean. That doesn't help. But I'm pulling on him. I'm like, buddy, you need to let go of the car. And he turns, he looks me dead in the eye. He's like, no. I'm yanking on his legs like I'm trying to start a lawnmower. Like, come on. Car's sliding across the floor. And he discovers the horn. And in that moment, I've got this decision to make. Do I stand firm and teach this boy an important life lesson about contentment and not getting what you want? No, I'm the grandpa. That's not my job, right? That's up to mom and dad. We know that giving a child everything they want is not how you produce a content child. It's how you produce a child who's not content, who's never satisfied, who's always entitled. If you want your child to be happy, then you say no, you set limits. You teach them to be grateful for what they have, because we know instinctively that contentment isn't found in getting more. We know that when we're teaching a child. We tend to forget that when we are looking at our own lives. So Paul says, I've learned it, and the word he uses for learned here is not like learning information. It's not like he read it in a book like, oh, here's the secret to contentment. It's right here. And now that I know it, I can be it. No, it's like the word learned here is like learning an instrument. If you want to learn an instrument, like you can read about that in a book, and maybe it's helpful to some degree, but really, if you want to learn an instrument, how do you learn an instrument? Practice. You practice. That's the word for learning contentment. It requires practice. What kind of practice? Well, what we're going to see on down here is generosity. That when you practice generosity, it teaches you to be content. When you practice generosity, it releases your grip on the steering wheel that you refuse to let go of. And the more you practice generosity, the more you learn contentment. In verse 13, I can do all things through him, through Jesus, through Christ, who gives me strength. That's a verse that gets misused a lot. It showed up in the Olympics, athletes quoting this verse as a way to claim victory. Like, I can do all things. I can win the gold through Jesus who gives me the strength to win the gold. That's not what this verse is teaching. In fact, if anything, this verse is teaching that whether I win or lose the gold, I find my strength in Christ. It's not me winning that makes me find strength in Jesus. It's whether I win or whether I lose. This verse is not about winning championships or closing deals or achieving dreams. And that gets applause from a lot of silver medalists out there, right? I've been trying to tell them. I shouldn't have said that. But no, I appreciate that, because you see how this gets misused in our kind of prosperity gospel, false gospel culture of if you follow Jesus, then that means you're going to be winning all the time. And that's not what Paul's saying. He's in many ways saying the opposite. He's saying, I have learned to be content whether I win or lose, whether I'm full or hungry, whether I'm living in plenty or in want. And so the secret to contentment, it's not a principle, it's a practice. It's not a formula, it's a person, it's a relationship. It's not about what you have, it's about who has you. That's what Paul is saying here. If you look at this next section, Paul's going to talk about the generosity that's been practiced by this church. Remember, in large part, the point of Philippians was to say thank you to this church in Philippi for their generosity. Verse 14, yet it was good of you to share in my troubles. Moreover, as you Philippians know, in the early days of your acquaintance with the gospel, when I set out for Macedonia, not one church shared with me in the matter of giving and receiving, except you only. For even when I was in Thessalonica, you sent me aid more than once when I was in need. Paul's saying thank you. You have been generous. You have been remarkably generous. And you're the only church who supported me, who supported this ministry from the beginning. But then here's what Paul says next in verse 17. This is so helpful. He says, not that I desire your gifts, not that I need your offer. Hey, listen, thank you. You shared this burden with me. God used you specifically to make a difference for me. Truthfully, if you wouldn't have done it, somebody else would have. If God wanted to accomplish this, he was going to accomplish it one way or the other. I'm glad you did it. I'm thankful you did it. But it's not that I desire your gifts. What I desire is that more be credited to your account. So helpful. It's like, look, I'm talking to you about money not because I'm wanting more and more from you. I'm wanting more and more for you. I love you, and because I love you, this is what I want. This is what I want for you. And so I'm talking to you about this because I want more to be credited to your account. That you've got this account in heaven, it has your name on it. Jesus tells you to store it for yourself's treasure there. Jesus says in Matthew, where moth and rust don't destroy, where thieves don't break in and steal. Store it for yourself's treasure in that account. Paul says, that's what I want for you. Imagine you're like 32, and you go into the office of a financial advisor, and you say to the financial advisor, look, I want to create an account so that I can retire at 65. And the financial advisor's like, perfect, that's why I'm here. Here's what you'll need to do. Here's the plan. Here's how much you'll need to put into that account so that when you turn 65, you'll be ready to go. Sounds great. But you've got a truck payment, and you've got a mortgage, and you've got kids in competitive sports leagues, and that's expensive. And so you mean to do it, but you don't quite get around to do it. The financial advisor's job then is to kind of remind you, say, hey, remember this account we set up? But let's just say in this scenario that you don't want to hear it. And you say to your financial advisor, look, I know we set up this account. I've got a lot of other things right now. I really don't want to hear it. The financial advisor keeps trying. You're like, stop preaching at me. I feel like you're always preaching at me about money. Stop preaching to me about money. The financial advisor keeps preaching at you. Why? Well, because he cares about this account that you've set up. And he knows that if the day comes when you turn 65, you're going to come into the office and you're going to be like, okay, let's see this account. And the question will be, what did you put towards it? And Paul says, look, you've got this account. And one of the reasons I'm talking to you so much is because I want to make sure that more is added to your account. I want to make sure that one day in heaven, you don't come up to me and like, why didn't you tell me about this account? And so Paul's really clear. The reason I'm doing this is because I want something for you. Last year, after our young commitment night, I was on my phone about a week later, and I opened up my notes app. I don't know if you would do this in your family, but a number of us in my family, my wife and I and some of our kids, we share an iCloud account. It kind of makes things nice with pictures and photos. It just automatically populates to the cloud, however that works. I'm not sure, but I know that's why it works. We share an iCloud account. Part of this is that sometimes our notes in our notes app get saved to the iCloud account, so you can see the notes people make. And I tried not to be nosy about those because I think, well, I'm not doing that on purpose. They're probably not either. But about a week after the Yum night, I clicked on my notes app and I saw this heading that said, move commitment. And I thought that must have been my note. I thought I must have said something there that I wanted to remind myself of. And so I click on it. And I realized right away that it's the move commitment that one of my kids made. And I see what they made. Wasn't trying to see it. Wasn't trying to be nosy, but it's right there. And I can see where they've gone month to month over the next 2 years and kind of said, this is what this means for us every month. And I'm going to be really honest with you. And I am embarrassed about this, but this is what's true. When I saw that, my first instinct was, that's too much. My first instinct was, hey, you have other things. You're young, you need to be saving for a house, and you've got these other things that you need to be putting your money towards. My first instinct was to try to protect them from that. And what does that reveal about me? I tell you, it revealed to me almost immediately this point of conviction. Do I really believe this? Because if I really believe what Jesus says about treasures in heaven and the shortness of this life and that we're just here for a moment and eternity, if I really believe that, then when I click on my kids' move commitment and I accidentally see what they put, I wouldn't feel protective. I would celebrate it. I'd be like, that is awesome. That's awesome because I want this for their eternal account. But there's something within me, and maybe there's something within you too, that just, we say we believe Jesus about all these things, but when it comes to this, we have a hard time having eyes for it. Verse 18, I have received full payment and have more than enough. I'm amply supplied now that I have received from Epaphroditus the gifts you sent. They're a fragrant offering. They're an acceptable sacrifice pleasing to God. He says this is an act of worship. Your generosity is an act of worship. It's not a fundraiser. It's an act of worship. Verse 19, and then my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. My God, look, you've been generous. Can I just promise you this? God will meet all of your needs. Not some of your needs, not most of your needs, all of your needs. According to your riches? No, thank goodness. According to his riches in Christ Jesus, he's gonna take care of you. And as long as I've been in ministry, I've just never seen, I've seen a lot of things. I've never seen, not once, someone outgive God. And so in this series, we have talked a lot about where we are moving, where we're moving as a church, and just some of the incredible opportunities God has given us. But we've spent just as much time talking about how we are moving. That we're moving not with guilt and not with pressure, but we're moving with joy, and we're moving with gratitude, and we're moving with contentment. Philippians has challenged us on how we move. The testimonies we've watched have inspired us. Take a few minutes and just watch a quick recap of the last 5 weeks. As we're on this journey, this move journey, it's an invitation that we're in the middle of responding to. And the two invitations for move was, number one, 100% engagement. Look, our challenge to you unapologetically is don't just come to church. Be a part of what God is doing here. If you're not in a group, join a group. If you're not serving, serve. If you're not giving, give. If you're not part of the prayer life of this church, be a part of the prayer life of this church. Commit yourself to it. The second goal was 2 years of sacrificial generosity. We committed to giving $266 million over a 2-year period. But here we are at the halfway point, and I just want us to talk about this idea of what fuels us when the feelings fade. It's not guilt that works. It's not pressure. It's not obligation. We've got grace, and we've got God's love, and we've got this deeper motivation. And so here's what I would say. What motivates us in the middle is gratitude. It's gratitude.
The legacy is going to continue. It started on our knees. And so within our marriage, prayer is a priority.
What if every single one of us prayed a dangerous prayer that sounds like this? God, what do you want to do in me and through me? You're kind of saying, God, I'm telling you up front, I'm going to do it. Just tell me what it is.
At that point, we decided we're going to ask the Lord to open doors. We're going to identify the mountains that he has to move. And we're going to start walking this path. What does it look like?
We have to be willing for it to cost us everything.
Like, we're not worshiping in this room today, in this building, if not for so many who have sacrificed in so many different ways across our church to say yes to how God called them.
It's not about the church needing it. It's just about our obedience and our hearts.
And I think that's what God was trying to teach me in that moment. No, I don't need your money. I just want your heart. And if I can separate it from this money, then I'll have it. And he did.
I want to be a part of a church that's defined more by how God is working through us than what divides us. God has moved in you. You've been comforted by his love. You share in the life of his Spirit. And so because of that, let that same love move through you.
We have more peace and contentment than we ever have. And it is 100% because of the commitment we made to move. Man, I just cannot imagine what he can do with more buy-in from more people. Like, if God can use us, I mean, he can use anybody.
And that is the invitation. That we will be a people who are defiant in our joy. This is how we rebel against this world. That it can take so many things from us, but it cannot steal our joy.
And all giving it to God is just more of less me and more of what can I do for others. And ultimately, how is God going to use me, and how am I going to make myself available to him?
Remember how this church constantly loves people one at a time. And remember that this church just doesn't talk about being the hands and feet of Jesus, but this church actually serves and gets its hands dirty and gets its feet tired. And I just remember this, and I just am grateful. And I just say, God, thank you. My heart is full of gratitude, and I just cannot wait to see what he does next. We are in the middle, church, and I want you to know, I would not want to be in the middle with anyone else. I love you. I thank God for you. I cannot wait to see what he does next. Let's move forward with gratitude.